Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips a balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this is from Press Reader. Inside Aussie's child torturing cult. How one mother saved her young son. This is from Woman's Day, dated 11 March 2019. I don't know, I'm already sus of this article, but let's read it. Because it's going to be this happy ending, and my first question is, why would a little boy be in a cult without his mother knowing? So that just, something's weird. So I'm going to read it. When doting mom Trisha Leisk found out her little boy had visited the Victorian headquarters of notorious cult The Family, fear swept through her. How old is his son? That's what I want to know. How old is he? What made the discovery even more harrowing, there's that word again, you guys. There's that word again. What is the deal? All these creepy, weird stories about hurting children always have the word harrowing story. Can't find any other descriptive word, like torturous, like haunted, scary, terrifying. It always has to be this word harrowing. What made the discovery even more harrowing was the fact it was Trisha's own mother who had subjected her precious grandson to the apocalyptic sect. To protect her son, Trisha was left with no choice but to disown her mom for good. Right, there's an inversion immediately. I told my mother not to take him there, and when I learned she had ignored my wishes, I was scared for all 4 of my children and what could happen to them. Is that the mother? Years before Trisha's mom, Eileen Johnston, had deserted her family to follow yoga instructor Ann Hamilton Byrne, a glamorous, self-made, maniacal messiah who became one of history's few female cult leaders. And where do these cult leaders come from? Recruited and brainwashed as an auntie by Hamilton Byrne in the late 60s, Eileen joined Ann's husband Bill and the cult's other aunties at their eerie remote property at Lake Eldon, 200 kilometers northeast of Melbourne. There, countless children who were acquired by illegal adoption or given up by cult recruits were charged to their care and stashed away. These innocent youngsters, children, were then allegedly subjected to horrendous beatings and torture, including having their heads held underwater, being starved, and being dosed with hallucinogenics and tranquilizers. Ann Hamilton Byrne claimed to be a reborn Jesus Christ. I know Mom was giving the children drugs because I found all these prescriptions in her top drawer. The now 81-year-old grandmother of 8 claims they'd been prescribed by doctors linked to the cult. It just sounds very satanic. Ann Hamilton Byrne had very powerful connections. That's a loaded sentence right there, you guys. That should really tell you something. Should really tell you something. And then in this magazine it says, they were training the children to take over the world. I want to see where they get to the part where it's a pedophile cult. The children were dressed alike, and many had their hair dyed blonde. Mother's guilt. Those high-up associates, who included lawyers, medical professionals, and politicians, were reason enough for Tricia to remain silent and never report the goings-on inside the secretive cult's walls. Tricia left with her mom, Eileen, in the 1960s. I was concerned they'd come for us if I went to the police. I didn't know who to trust, like I tell you guys. And I had my 4 children to protect, claims Tricia, whose revelations were made public in an Aussie TV investigation, The Cult of the Family. I felt so guilty remaining silent. I also want to bring up, it's always the same story. So often when you see people speaking out, it's like 30, 40, almost 50 years after it happened. So clearly, nobody's going to jail. You see what I mean? Conveniently. It wasn't until 1987, when a child escaped and police raided the compound, that the truth finally came out about the atrocities that went on within the family. Do you guys know how many children committed suicide after they escaped from there? Along with her husband, Hamilton Byrne, had collected at least 28 infants and children to apparently start a master race. Oh, this sounds so familiar, doesn't it? Sounds so familiar. Must be a conspiracy. Who would save humanity after a predicted Armageddon. My mother said they were training the children to take over the world, claims Tricia. Wearing identical clothing and often with their hair dyed blonde, the kids were homeschooled and cut off from reality. They believed Hamilton Byrne could read their thoughts and were allegedly given LSD on their 14th birthdays as part of an initiation ceremony. Like a ritual? Ann Hamilton Byrne was an evil, horrible woman doing what she did to those poor, helpless children, claims Tricia. She was a nutcase, but made everyone believe what she wanted them to believe. Hamilton Byrne had even convinced her followers she was a female reincarnation of Jesus Christ, while the aunties, who also dyed their hair blonde to match their leader, were the apostles rebirthed. There's that reincarnation thing again. After losing his wife to the family, Tricia's heartbroken father, Thomas, would sit in his car outside the cult property for days on end searching for her. Dad watched them for years, recalls Tricia. He knew what was going on there because other husbands of the aunties had told him. It was so painful for him, but he wouldn't go to the police. He was a broken man. Cult's demise. No, it's still going on, so. In 1973, Eileen moved to the family's UK compound and married another cult member, although she never divorced Thomas. What's it called? Isn't that called bigamy? I think. In 1993, she returned to Australia when the Hamilton Burns were charged with conspiracy to defraud and commit perjury by deceitfully registering the births of 3 unrelated children as their own triplets. They pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of making a false declaration and were fined just $5,000 each. See how little the children's lives are worth? You see that? Bill died in 2001, and the apparently evil mastermind, 97, who has dementia now, resides in a nursing home. After the court case, Eileen went back to London without contacting her own children. Tricia wrote to her mother, who died in 2003, asking her to explain why she destroyed their family. But she never admitted what she did was wrong, Tricia says. True narcissist. And she never ever said sorry. Because they're not. No mention of the pedophilia. Not one word about it. I'll leave a link in the description. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.